613 Golfers, welcome to another episode of 613 Golfer Podcast. This week presented to us by Ping Golf Canada and the makers of the new G425 Ping irons, hybrids, drivers, and fairways. Check it all out at ca.ping.com. Well, it's been another week of shutdowns for the golf industry, and I know there's nobody happy about it. I get that. I follow Facebook. I follow Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I may not be the most active on it, but I know what everybody's saying. I know what everybody's thinking. And there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of people upset about it. And I get that. And I understand you needing to lash out and whatnot. I just want people, I'm not going to get into this too much this week because we've already talked about it, frankly, enough. I think we're talking too much, and we need to let the people that are working to make this happen do their job and get in front of the Ford government and plead the case the proper way. And you know, there's always going to be those that want to defy it. There's always going to be those that want to get their voices heard out there on social media and whatnot, and that's fine. But rest assured, the National Allied Golf Associations, which is the We Are Golf political lobby group, they're doing what they can do. They're the ones that got it back for us the first time, and they're going to get it back for us again. And I think you're going to find, you know, nobody quote me on this because I don't really have a super inside track on things, but I think you're going to find that within the next week or so, you know, maybe sooner, but you know, at least within the next week, I think we're probably going to see something happen. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like if it does happen. It may not be fully reopened. It may be partially reopened. It may be some modified restrictions, whatever the case may be. I don't think that this is going to go till May the 20th. I'm hopeful that it's not going to go till May the 20th myself, because, you know, obviously we have some interests in it not going that long, but please, please, please be patient. People are doing what they can to make it happen, and I think you're gonna see something happen relatively soon. That said, I want to, while we're on that subject of dates and upcoming dates in May, I know there's been a lot of people asking us about the Flagstick Open and the fact that it is the May 22nd, 23rd weekend, and we've completely sold out. The waiting list is at about 55 people right now. There are some dropouts here and there, so we are probably going to see, you know, half a dozen or more people get into the event that are sitting on the waiting list right now. But it is what it is. We're happy it's sold out, but we're also not happy it's sold out. So, because we want everybody to be able to play. That said, we do have a backup date of June 26th, 27th. We opted to go with a closer backup date than what we did last year, going to August, just to keep the event tighter. Plus, we do have something planned for the fall. I'm not going to give anything away just yet. It'll be a September event. It's going to be an interesting and exciting event, but I have no details to share just yet. I could share them with you, but I'm not going to just yet. Let's get it all ironed out. Now, on the subject of tour golf, I know on this show we said we're not going to talk about tour golf per se, but when it involves somebody who's from the 613, well, then that changes everything. And Brooke Henderson continues to do us proud here in the 613 golf region, and she's picked up yet another LPGA Tour event. A little bit of time between this one and her last one, but you know, firing a little 67 in the final round and taking the event by one shot after starting the day 4 shots back at the LA Open. Congratulations, Brooke Henderson, on another victory. And I'm sure now that she's got a little taste of victory again, this won't be the last one this year. So we'll see what happens with her. Now, the OVGA had their AGM, virtual AGM again this year. And there's a few interesting things that came out of the AGM, and you'll be able to get all the details of this. I can't obviously go into all the details on this show because it would take too long, but you can go to flagstick.com and you will see all the details in the article posted there following the AGM. So it's all up there right now, but just in a nutshell, the OVGA, the intersectionals will be back this year. No spectators, no caddies. but the intersectionals will return for this year. We also see that it's going to be a Triple Crown Champions Crown, kind of like winning all four majors and getting the Grand Slam on the PGA Tour. This is sort of the Triple Crown. It's the OVGA City and District, the Match Play Championship, and the OVGA Cup in the respective divisions. So if someone were to win all three, then they'd win the Triple Crown, and I think that's kind of a cool thing. I mean, it's very possible for somebody to win all three, and it's kind of a neat little accomplishment should they win all three to get something extra awarded to them. So that's another thing the OVGA is doing, and obviously the big news from the OVGA for this year, in conjunction with celebrating 100 years of organized competitive golf. The OVGA has announced the creation of the Ottawa Valley Golf Association Hall of Fame. Now, we had Drew Lefebvre, who's the tournament director for the OVGA, on a few episodes back talking about the Hall of Fame and some of the details, and it was a little preliminary at that point. It was happening. They were in the selection process. So it'll be a little bit later this summer, but the announcements will be made as to who they have selected to the first group to go into the Hall of Fame. So it'll be really cool to hear who they chose and some of the explanations as to why they were chose. Details of how you can nominate somebody for the Hall of Fame are not up yet. They are creating that special page on on ovga.org for you to be able to do that. That's also where they're going to host the winners, and where you'll see all the details and the bios of the people that have won. All right. Well, that kind of sums up a little bit of the week that was, I guess, if you will. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to somebody very familiar to everybody, a very good friend of mine. I'm not going to tell you who just yet. You're going to have to wait, and we'll be right back in a chip shot.
At Ping, our culture of curiosity has been driving innovations for over 60 years. Innovations like the new G425 iron, which brings you greater distance without sacrificing the forgiveness and control you need to play with precision. And with free access to the Arcos Caddy system, you'll play smarter and shoot lower scores. The new Ping G425 iron, better by every measure. Get fit today.
Visit ca.ping.com to learn more about G425.
All right. Well, this week's guest is not a stranger to us. Very well-known individual. He has won many junior golf tournaments as a junior, obviously men's amateur tournaments, professional events, but it's not, he's even been on an NCAA scholarship and played with some very high-profile PGA standouts. But this individual is not known specifically for their playing. While they are a very good player, they're known for their teaching, and the voice that we have heard on the radio for many years now, host of the Tee It Up on TSN 1200, and a very good friend of mine, a PGA of Canada national teaching professional, my good friend, Kevin Haime. Welcome to the show, Kevin. How are you today?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Other than not having any place to teach at the moment, but doing well.
Seems to be the obvious conversation that I'm having with everybody right now. I sort of started off the show talking briefly about the whole COVID thing, but I'm getting to the point where I've done it week after week after week after week. I'm just kind of, I know it's a topic of conversation, and you and I will get into it a little bit later on as to what you've done there, but I'm almost tired of talking about it.
Yeah. I think we all are, that's why I think there's a little bit of a sense out there, Jeff. People just want to get on with it, right? I think we know, or we feel we know, that if we put our mask on and we're responsible and stay outdoors, we're okay. And I think that's where the frustration of a lot of golfers comes from. I don't know how you can get more physically isolated than, 4 guys on a 10-acre hole. So I think everyone just wants to move on and do it responsibly. And golfers all feel that way, but I think the population feels that way. I sure don't see, this lockdown being as the streets being as empty as they were the first and second lockdowns. Right?
No,
so people are still out and about a little bit.
For sure, which is a good thing, I guess. Even though they're supposed to be staying at home, but I guess it's okay to be circulating as long as people are being active and I mean, there's going to be sides to the conversation, both two sides to the conversation, and obviously golf being what it is, and that you can stay social distant. I think the bigger issue with golf, at least what I've seen out there and what I've talked about on this show a couple of times now, is that I think people equate the problem with why we're staying home to the golf. And I think talk has been made about, we can stay social distant with golf, and that's true, but it's not the golf so much that's the problem. It's what happens before and after the golf. And I think that's where there's some gray areas as to whether or not enough people optically, and I say optically because it's not across the board, but optically are doing enough to show that golf can be socially distant, not just on the course. It's clear that on a golf course, four people can stay away from each other. But
Although
from what I've witnessed, it's not that way in the parking lot. And that's the part that that's the gray area, I think, that might be part of the problem. But, that said, I know myself, and I'm sure you do as well, I know that, and I talked about it right off the top of the show, about NAGA and what the We Are Golf Group is doing, and stuff's being done.
Great stuff. I have to tell you, what am I? I'm 32 years into this business. I've been a PGA Pro 35 now. I worked for my dad a little bit at the Hunt Club before I got started with Double Deck Golf Center way back in the day. But I've been very impressed with all the groups. I've been a little bit critical of some of the things the PGA has done or hasn't done over the years. And same with the National Golf Course Owners Association. I haven't, I haven't been a huge fan of every decision from any of those bodies really over the years. But I have to say right now, between, Mike Kelly at Golf Ontario is highly visible the last couple of weeks. And Greg Chambers here with the NGCOA here in this town has done a great job. PGA of Canada, Kevin Thistle and Carol Ann here locally have done a great job. The managers, our industry has really advocated. I don't want to say lobbying, because lobbying sounds dirty backroom politics, but they've advocated really well. And I'm happy that they've done it. And I'm even proud of them for doing it. Like, I think our industry's done really well. And I also think that most businesses, Jeff, I know you got the parking lot tailgaters, but for the most part, I've seen great stuff. You go up to the gates at Eagle Creek, for example, here in Ottawa, and it's like, if you don't have a tee time, do not enter the property, right? So I don't think we've kidded around with this thing. Everybody's taken it pretty seriously. There's going to be the odd exception, but 26 million rounds of golf last year in Ontario, and no cases directly tied to golf. And you might get a comment saying, well, I know someone here, but I mean, out of 26 million, it is a drop if it's anything. So it's pretty good. We've done a good job.
Yeah, and I think we're close. I really do think we're close. I think we're going to see something happen in the next week. I'm
hopeful too.
I don't have an inside track necessarily on that kind of stuff, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to see something happen in the next.
The last little thing on this, and then we can move on to whatever you want to talk about. But I'm noticing it's more political now. Doug Ford, and whether I'm a fan or not is irrelevant, and Prime Minister Trudeau the same way. These guys are starting to have to be more careful. It's not purely about what maybe is right to do, but how it will be seen, etc. And I think Doug Ford's got to be very careful not to favor any industries, and maybe that's what we're seeing. But I'm hopeful we'll be. I think May 20th. Boy, I'd be really shocked if we were closed, all the way to May 20th. I think we're going to see something happen.
As would I. I would agree 100% with that. I think it's going to happen sooner than that, which is great, because we got our tournament on the 22nd. So I'd really like golf not to be coming back on the 20th, and then we have the tournament on the 22nd. Clearly, if it comes to that, we won't do it. We'll move the date. But if we're back in the next week, then the tournament will happen as it always is, and people will be clamoring to get on the golf course for the 2 weeks leading up to it.
Yeah, and one thing about it, Jeff, I don't think it's unfair for one competitor over another. If it opens 2 days before the event, no one's able to practice. So
exactly.
In essence, it'll almost level the playing field a little bit. Anyway.
Exactly. So listen, you kind of threw double deck in there, which is it's not the most ideal segue, but at least it does draw a little bit of the history. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is that we're talking on this podcast all about 613 golf and people within the 613 golf region, and it makes sense, obviously, and I'm sad we didn't get to do it a little bit sooner than this, but I'm glad we got to do it quickly, is to get you on here. And I don't really want to get into, I mean, people know who Kevin Haime is. It's not like you're this invisible person that, oh, let's get to know who this guy is, what's he all about. But there's sort of some things about you as a teacher, and I just want people to kind of understand how maybe it got from where you started as you were a top level junior golfer, you were a top level men's amateur, you were on an NCAA scholarship to Illinois. So there's the history. Like, I don't want to delve into the childhood, but the path that you took to get from there to where you are here, just how it started. Like, when did you decide, or did you know what that path was going to be when you took off for NCAA school, or did it evolve?
Yeah, it sort of evolved, Jeff. I would say I'm more of an entrepreneur and a businessman more than a pure golf practicer. So even as a junior, I was always a pretty creative kid and wanted to do different things and just didn't want to hit balls 10 hours a day. And I guess in college, I mean, Steve Stricker was a teammate of mine. Everyone around here knows that after listening on the radio and everything over the years. But if you can't beat the guy on your own golf team, what are the odds you're going to be the next Jack Nicklaus, right? So I think midway through university, I became aware that being a tour pro maybe wasn't in the cards for me. I also had the benefit of my brother, who won the Quebec Junior and the Quebec Amateur and was, down in Australia and playing over in Asia, and seeing how he was trying to get through that, to kind of decide that maybe that wasn't my pathway to jump in a car with almost no money and go around the world and try to compete. We were really ill prepared when we look back. I think Jim Tubman and a couple of guys from the Hunt Club gave my brother $5,000, and off he went. No team, no sports psychologist, no, barely any video really on golf swing. And so it was a tough go. And I can remember being at Stanford, practicing at the Stanford at the golf range back in college. We used to go out west for our March break, and I got to play, Riviera, LA Country Club, and the practice facilities at some of these places were great. And it just kind of snuck in there that wouldn't it be cool to, build a big practice center and that had a lot of different amenities, but also even the idea with the double deck was, we had heard over in Japan and in Asia, they had these multi-level ranges, and I guess what Topgolf is today, really, right? But so it just kind of morphed into that. Chuck Brown's was around as a discount shop, but my dad and mom always taught me to kind of give country club service and attention to detail and everything. So I thought, well, if I open this great practice center and I use all the things my dad and mom had taught me about merchandising and running it, and I had my golf reputation, I got to tell you the truth, a golf school wasn't even part of the thought process at the time. I was a competitor and wanted to build a big driving range. It kind of happened over the next few years, kind of slowly pulled me into it.
Yeah. Now, that was the other thing I want to talk about was obviously the plan to build double deck and to go that route was more of a business model plan. At what point during that, I mean, and what you did at double deck was awesome. But what point during that process did something click with you with respect to the teaching side of things? Like, when did that kind of, because your dad taught obviously at the Hunt Club, but that was not his primary thing at the Hunt Club. He was all about the merchandising too, obviously winning, I don't know, countless merchandiser of the years to the point where they retired that award. But at what point in your path with double deck did you realize, hey, you know what? I think I want to get a little more into this teaching thing.
That, like I said, that happened over time, Jeff, where I mean, for whatever weird reason, I majored in communications at Illinois. I was mostly there for golf. I have to be honest. I thought communications would be interesting, and then I ended up doing a radio show and taught golf. But I've always liked talking to people, talking about the game. My teammates and I, under our coach at school, spent an awful lot of time talking about the golf swing and working on our own games. Right? You go to class in the morning. We'd have classes from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then we'd go to practice 2 to 7 every day and either play or practice. So there were a lot of conversations about golf swing and whatnot. I came home as a good player. I won the amateur championship here in town. Then the first year I won the pro championship. But it was really just people. I don't know. I can't remember back whether I just wanted to help people out who were out there struggling, or if friends came to me and said, "Hey, you got a tip or two for me?" And as I did it a little bit, I just saw that the communication was getting across to people and it was kind of fun. And, what was pretty basic to me, basic stuff, because I learned with my dad as a golf pro, grip stance, posture, alignment. Most people didn't have a clue, back in the late 80s, early 90s about so many details. It's before YouTube. It's before all kinds of instruction on TV and everything. So, I don't know how I got drawn into it, but I do know from a business perspective at a certain point, the retail end of it was going okay, but it wasn't exploding. And, I just thought, this is a thing that we can do here to develop this thing, this part of the business into something. And it's just taken off ever since. I mean, that's 32 years ago now. And it's been a straight staircase up since then.
Well, it's clear too with with what you've done with the Kevin Haime Golf Center and where it's located now. Obviously, double deck closed. The land is what the land is now. Everybody knows what's sitting on the land now.
Yeah.
But when you built the Kevin Haime Golf Center, obviously all of those things with respect to teaching were put into that facility. That it wasn't, that facility is not just about a driving range. The teaching side of what you do became the focal point of what you built there.
Yeah, so that was 1999. My investors closed us down at Double Deck. They had some buyers for the land and the kind of rent we were paying. I mean, it was ridiculous to even consider staying there when they had an opportunity to sell the land. Dean Brown was a good friend of mine too, and Dean is the guy who got me into still is my best buddy. Dean kind of said, "Look, make it the Kevin Haime Golf Center. Like, you're what the other people don't have, your reputation as a teacher and a player." And I felt really weird about it, but we just decided to do the Kevin Haime thing. So that really happened from that perspective, where Dean had that idea. And then I won the National Teacher of the Year in 2000. So it's voted on by all your peers in the PGA, your different sections, if you will, different zones, I guess. And I won the national award right when we were building this place. And as you know, we had a mini putt at Double Deck, and we were going to build a mini putt where the short game area is. And I can remember saying to my wife, Lisa, you can't be a national teacher of the year and not have an area to teach bunker shots and chipping and pitching. So that kind of is what really made us focus on our 2-acre short game complex here and have everything you'd need to really be a Canada level or a world level teaching place. And so that's what we did.
So now from a philosophy standpoint, obviously you've been teaching for a long time now, and you've been in the, the instruction game for a long time. What have you seen as a teacher, and sort of what philosophies have you sort of developed that maybe have changed over the years and maybe have stayed the same?
Well, my own philosophies, I've learned more always. And I look back at things I might have said to somebody, 20 years ago and said, "Ooh, that wasn't quite right on the mark," but I certainly think we've helped everybody as we've gone along. And we're all, as human beings, always learning as we move forward. I would say though, Jeff, I haven't been a system guy or a stack and tilt is now trendy and now this is trendy. I'm pretty proud of the fact that I've been, PGA manual basics, athleticism, and balance since day one. Of course, technology has made teaching so different. I mean, I used to write with a whiteboard pencil on a tube TV to show them, put a circle around their head or whatever to show them, the movement. And of course, today we've got incredible high def, high speed video cameras. We've got slow motion of every tour pro we can replay for people and compare them to that. We've got, we here at the Golf Center have Gears 3D motion capture, which is, creating an avatar out of a suit with all kinds of markers on it. So the advent of launch monitors and videos and software and 3D motion capture has made me and my whole team here much better teachers. But the philosophy of where you put the ball between your feet and how you have to work on posture lines and balance, that really hasn't changed too much. And I'm actually pretty proud of that. I love looking at some of our old flagstick tips, and saying, yeah, I still teach that exact same concept today, and I think that's a positive. Many young teachers today are trying to prove to each other on social media how smart they are by, making it sound extremely technical or using an incredible amount of data to explain something that Harvey Penick, got Tom Kite to win the US Open and Ben Crenshaw to win the Masters, having them swing a weed whacker, So I don't want to belittle technology and data, and knowledge is wealth. I totally agree with that. But, we've got to remember what our client knows, and we've got to, give them the information they need and not just spew out everything we know. So it's a big part of our teaching philosophy here too.
Now, we talked a little bit before about your dad and Dad Peter,
Yeah.
and I'm just wondering, is there anything that, as a young lad growing up, and even as a young adult getting into the business, obviously your dad would have steered you a little bit in the direction that you needed to go. But is there anything that your dad might have told you about golf, about the golf swing, about like anything within the industry that you would have latched onto and still kept as something in the top of your mind today?
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, my dad was he was very curious about the golf swing. He went down to see Jimmy Ballard in Alabama way back in the 70s. And, my dad he lived and breathed golf, and he was just devouring any information he could get. And that's really the thing he taught me. He taught me that, if it's your life's work, you just can't work too hard, and you got to embrace things and just dive in. He had a couple of funny sayings. I mean, he wasn't the best money guy. He used to say, bite off more than you can chew and chew like hell. That was one of the things my dad used to say, which that kind of typified his life. He just, he went all in. And, so that was one thing. He taught me a work ethic. And, I think you need that work ethic. I heard a thing from Mark Cuban a few years ago who said, you got to run your business every day, 24 hours a day, like someone's trying to steal it from you, because they probably are. There are competitors out there wondering how they can topple you or how they can, beat you in the business market. And you've got to work at something and just stay working at it. So that was one thing my dad taught me. And he really taught me that by example. I mean, I wouldn't say he worked me to death as a teenager, but he and my mom, kind of set the template for what Lisa and I have done, which is you can't go in too early, you can't stay too late, and there's not a detail you really shouldn't be paying attention to if you can. So he did that. And then the other thing my dad taught me, I think, is, and this might sound a little harsh, but he used to say too, another funny one, nobody ever drowned in sweat. My dad was like, man, you can't work too hard. If you're struggling with your golf swing, go back to the range, go work it out. I don't want to hear it. So he was kind of a tough guy that way. But he also, he had a way about him that I was really proud of my dad, and he won all those awards and everything. And so kind of copying what he did was, came very naturally to me. And the last thing I would say that he said to me, and I think a lot of parents need to hear this one today. He used to tell me I wasn't that special. I had to go out and work for whatever I got. I think, I mean, I'm not talking about Gen Z or whatever, but a lot of people tell their kids they can do anything they want. And, parents call and advocate for kids all the time and make excuses. And my dad was not that guy. My dad was like, look, you're no special than the next guy. If you want to get more than him or beat him at golf, you got to work harder. And, I like some of that. Some of it might be a little bit harsh, but that was his generation too, right? My dad and I never had big hugs and I love you sessions. It just wasn't the way he was wired. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now who say, yeah, my dad was exactly like that in that generation.
No
That's just
question.
the way it was.
And I agree. I mean, my dad was the same way. I mean, I'm obviously a little different with my kids, kind of somewhere in the middle, maybe a little more passionate at times and a little more huggy and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
and I think, I think, Jeff, we've learned that from our dads, right? And I do too. Listen, I don't want to sound harsh here. The 2 points I'd like to make is, throw yourself into whatever you do and do your best at it, number one. And number two, don't expect anyone to give you anything. You go out and work harder than the next guy to get it. And I think those are both really positive things. But should my dad and I have had like a more special relationship based on, yeah, I call my kids every day, and we say I love you at the end of our phone call. It's a totally different relationship than I had with my dad. But I just think you got to be careful not to tell your kids that stuff's easy or whatever, because as you know, running a business for 25 years, it's not, right?
well, and nothing, nothing could be more pertinent than talking about that right now. The way things have been for the past year, everything that the hard work side of things has never been more evident in not just I've seen what you've done. I know what I've done to try to make adjustments to try to keep things working, and other business owners trying to do the same things. And yes, some have gone out of business and some have basically just washed the hands and said, okay, you know what, I'm not working this hard to keep this thing going. But nothing is more evident than putting in the hard work and the sweat than the way it is now, the way things are going now.
I do think, though, I mean, sometimes there's no way out, right? I don't want to talk, like some of those business owners may look at their model and go, man, how are we going back to a model where you can touch everything and or whatever it is, right? I don't know what their reason would have been for their decision, but I don't want to say I'm any tougher than anyone else, but we sat at our dining room table when COVID hit, Jeff, Lisa and I, and it was like being back when the kids were babies and we were at the dining room table in the winter asking companies not to bill us till spring, right? Because we had no cash flow and struggling away. We're kind of back to the dining room table going, oh, here, now what are we going to do? And we actually redesigned our entire model here at the golf center in the course of 2 months. And I actually like what we've come up with. I actually think, in a weird way, some of COVID's been a blessing because we re-looked at our model here, and I think we've come up with a better one. So, but yeah, it took a lot of creativity. All of our, as you know, all of our entrepreneurial experience had to go into figuring out our way through this thing.
Well, I remember, obviously, we've talked about, the fact that we're in our 25th anniversary season. And I remember, and I'm sure you do too, the first time I came in to Double Deck Golf Center and sat in your office with the Mickey Mouse golfer poster on the wall in your office. And I remember
pen in the corner.
Exactly. It was one of the things that you said to me. And if I'm ever interviewed years and years down the road and somebody asks me, is there anything anybody ever said to you that you still, like I just said to you, that you still remember today? And it was that I sat in your office, I sat in that chair, I was intimidated as hell. Because I was like this wet behind the ears, kid trying to start a golf magazine, and I'm sitting there talking to you, and you said, just remember something, that what you're doing is not just a business, it's a lifestyle. And I still kind of remember that. I remember that today is like, it's not just about a business, it's everything else that you do, the image that you portray. What you do by having your logo on your hat or your shirt, or driving a decent car, or the way you portray yourself and how you portray your business it's a lifestyle as well as running a business. And I still remember that today, and I'm pretty sure you remember that conversation too. But that is when you bought the back cover and we're never off it again until this year.
Well,
now there's no back cover, right? So
I think except for this year, we're digital.
Yeah.
We've had a great partnership, Jeff. I mean, I've put a lot of work and sweat equity into writing those tips and doing stuff, and you've been a great partner out on the road. I mean, I think if both people work hard, great things happen, you know. And I dedic I don't de I don't think it's responsible necessarily, but I think a lot of the advertising and marketing things we've done with you have sure helped. So it's been a win-win, right? Which is what a relationship should be. I mean,
Exactly.
we've given you guys a lot, you've given us a lot, and you've actually given the industry here in Ottawa a lot. And I even see value in that, you know, which may not be a pure business decision, but I can't imagine the Ottawa golf scene without Flagstick in it, reporting on everything. So you've done your job, and we've worked really hard and done our job. It's been a great relationship, you know. But I agree with what I said to you back then. Like, you know, now I would like to say this. I mean, I had great parents who taught me a work ethic and gave me a great childhood growing up at the Hunt Club, playing golf and working and learning the business. My wife Lisa is a rock star. I mean,
Ain't that the truth?
with Trish, you know, you can't do this by yourself. And you know, if Lisa had been an accountant and was in an office somewhere, and I was working 13-hour days, and all this would have, I don't know how it would have turned out, but it's very difficult. I mean, if you're in the golf business, your spouse and your whole family need to understand too that, you know, I mean, you got to make hay while the sun shines, kind of, right? It's harvest season of those little white golf balls, and you got to be willing to go and get it done. And you need a good partner to do that. And I've had a great partner in my business life, you know, so it's been awesome from that perspective too.
Yeah, that you have. Now, one last thing, Kevin, before I let you go. What's next? I mean, here we are, you know, you've come, you know, we're coming through a pandemic. Your business model has changed a little bit, but what's next for Kevin Haime and the Kevin Haime Golf Center?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we were first to bring Power Tee to Canada. We brought Gears 3D motion capture. You know, I bought my first launch monitor in 2004. I think, you know, one thing I would like on my tombstone is, you know, we were innovators, right? We didn't sit still, and you know, we're still the only ones in Canada of certain things that we have here at the golf center. So we'll innovate. I don't know how yet. I don't know how long we'll be here at this location. You know, we got houses building up beside us. We got to figure out some details about that. But I know my son Jake is doing an awesome job, and he's as passionate as I am. I go home at night now at 6:37, and he's here locking up at 10. So, you know, he gets it and loves it, and we'll probably put him a little more at the forefront. And then, you know, gee whiz, I don't have a crystal ball, Jeff, but one thing I've changed my attitude about a lot. I used to say, you know, nets were for fishing. If people just go inside and whack balls into a net in the winter, you know, they might get worse. They might get worse and come out shanking everything because they're only hitting the ball 6-7 feet. But with launch monitors and all the data you can get when you practice in the winter, I think our industry is changing, so the influence will be more indoors than outdoors, actually. And as Canadians, I think we're suited, you know, maybe to you know, have a big indoor golf school that has all the tech, right? And I know there's some of them out there already. There are some good indoor golf schools in Ottawa, and I'm not making an announcement that we're about to do this or anything, but I could certainly see sort of a really innovative, high-tech kind of indoor golf experience being part of our next facility or the next chapter in our existence. It doesn't mean that you don't have to, you know, have a golf center and you don't have to have great course partners to do playing lessons and everything. But, you know, I kind of am more intrigued a little now with the idea of having all kinds of simulation and data points and club testing and everything, right? And that's what's really changed. I mean, that was unfathomable 15 years ago, and now I think it's possible.
Well, there you go. Well, Kevin,
What about you? Let me put you on the hook for a second.
Put me on the spot. See, this is supposed to be me interviewing you, right? Like,
I know that's your
how awesome is it to change the whole table here and switch everything around? It's like, okay, now I'm the one with the microphone in front of me, and you're the one on the other side there, and I'm the one asking the questions. What about us? You know, I mean, much like you and much like a lot of other businesses, COVID forced us to change our model. We had no choice. We couldn't print a magazine. Simple as that. There was no place to distribute it. And even to this day, even as golf came back and then disappeared again, and now on the brink of coming back again, that doesn't change anything for us. You still can't go into a clubhouse and sit down and have a meal. You still can't go into a pro shop more than one person at a time and pay for your green fee, if they're even letting you in the pro shop at all. Yeah. Retail is curbside, or it's minimal people allowed in the store at any given time. I can't put magazines on the counter at your driving range anymore in the window, because you don't want people coming to the window. Yeah. So we were forced, obviously, to say, okay, well, we're digital only. Now, what that also taught us is that from a digital perspective, a digital magazine can get a significant amount of readership, and it never replaces print. I mean, that's just the way it is, and it's not going to. But the website side of what we do now seems to be more and more of the, and things like this podcast, the voice, the way that we can deliver that voice. So where Flagstick launched in 1996, and it was the voice of golf in the region, things like this podcast become part of everything and become another piece of that voice. So now I'm talking on YouTube and on podcasts like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, talking about golf within this region the way I did in 1996 when I launched that magazine and built it up. Will we go back to print? My gut tells me no. My heart tells me I'd like to, but my gut's telling me after 2 years, well, it will be after 2 years at the end of this season of not doing a print issue, chances of going back in 2022 and doing a print issue again are probably slim to none, but I'm not going to rule it out. Yeah. But the long-term model that we're facing now is that we're a digital product, whether it's a digital magazine, whether the digital magazine part of what we do exists beyond this year, or we become just a website and just a podcast and do all these special things. We might do special publications as opposed to committing to doing magazines all the time. Yeah.
I see that, Jeff. The other one you haven't mentioned, and I think it's so critical, is social media for you guys. I mean, Scott McLeod, you guys are lifetime best friends, I know. I mean, this guy is a great follow on Twitter, and you get so much great information out of Scott and out of let's call it out of Flagstick instead of just out of Scott. But I think all of those venues give us everything we need. It makes you, it's like me, right? You don't know what your model's going to be, but I mean, at its heart, at its center, I'll be teaching golf and trying to help golfers, and you'll be reporting on golf and, and giving news to golfers, right? And we'll just figure out what the world looks like. We might be doing holographs of each other in 15 more years, Jeff, Can
you imagine that? That would be, that would be kind of.
Listen, I've said that seriously to my son, Jake. Like, in 15 years, I wouldn't be surprised if you video someone and then you can have them appear as a 3D rendering in a studio and walk around them and show them where the club is and everything, right? And God, when I look at his potential, Jake's potential at 28, the things he knows compared to what I knew at 28, I knew how to get a ball in the hole, and I knew how to kind of communicate to people and connect with them. But, we didn't have all the data and everything. So as we move forward, it's gonna be more and more interesting, right? I'm always excited. I'm always excited about the future. That's for sure.
Well, Jake's got a thirst too, and that's the and some teachers do it because they'd rather teach, or they can't make enough money playing and they want to have their own thing. Some teach because it's just a passion. And Jake doesn't just have the passion the way you did. He also has the thirst for knowledge. And that reminds me a lot of, I wasn't around you the whole time when you were going through it, so I don't know what your thirst for knowledge was, but from Scott's perspective, that's what Scott's like as a person. So. It's just this constant need to know more. And the digging in. I might mention something to Scott about something, and next thing you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting downstairs watching TV. Yes, I'm usually up at 2 in the morning. And
I'm not
not anymore. And I'll get an email or a text from Scott, and it'll say, I just did some research on this, and I'm like, the hell? Like, dude,
Yeah.
it was just a thought. It was just, but it's like, I gotta know what this does. And I see that in Jake when I talk to him and when I see him, it's just this, I gotta know more. I gotta know more about that. And that will serve him well. And he'll go a long way in the industry and as a golf teacher because of it.
Yeah, you know what? And lucky, right? Like sometimes generations take a sidestep or go backwards even. I mean, my mom and dad started $30 going to Daytona Beach for the month, right? And like bringing sandwiches in the car. No money, no money. My dad was the assistant at the hunt club. I built this great business and had, I mean, I don't think anyone in golf's making a ton of money, but I've had moderate success financially. I'm very secure. You know, after 32 years, Lisa and I, we got our house paid off. Everything's good. And now Jake has the same opportunity to take our brand and everything, right? And to move it to, and it's not about the money, but just another success and size level. And it is neat to watch for sure. And you're right. People like Scott, people like you, people like me, you have your dark little moments where you question yourself or whatever, but I'm a pretty enthusiastic. I can get the I guess that's my dad, right? Bite off more you can chew and chew like hell.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been that guy. I've never been scared to try something. I mean, the radio show, I just went in there. I remember I wrote out 47 pages of text for my first radio show, and I literally spit up in my mouth, like just before going on air. I was so nervous, but that would never stop me from doing something. Like I did it, and it's turned into a great part of our brand and, and the marketing of our brand, but also just to be a neat thing for golf in Ottawa. That radio show has been around so long, but Scott's the same. You're the same, Jeff. Like you're always looking for ways to do things and improve things. And it's really important. It's good stuff,
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's like I said, it's been a great partnership that we've had with you over the years, and I mean, I know I've learned a lot about the golf business from you, and you pointed me in the right direction to a lot of people. Over the years, it's helped me build what we've built, and being a big part of it through the instruction side of things, and being a supporter of it through, as a financial supporter of the magazine through the marketing side has been,
that's the only part I question.
I don't question it at all. I think it's been great, and I think you should do more.
Can we rethink that? Can we have another look at that whole thing?
No, we've already established the long-term plan. Interestingly enough, I mean, gotta keep, I knew this was going to happen. I knew that we'd be talking like a couple of old men on the, up in the bleachers at the Muppets or something there. But interestingly enough, we talked about the instruction and all the articles that you've written, and this year, obviously, we got forced into trying something different.
Yeah,
and I think, I look at numbers. I'm a numbers guy, and I look at feedback, and the feedback on what we did in the first issue has been phenomenal. The numbers on what we did in the first issue have been phenomenal as far as the readership, because we did it as a video, being on YouTube, and the number of views that it's had on there, plus, being posted on the website, and the number of views that it's had there. It's been just that the whole concept of doing it, looking back at an old tip, but instead of writing it or just taking that tip and publishing it, say, here, have a read, look at these pictures. We did it as a video series, or start of a video series. Yeah. And I think it looked great, and it's been received extremely well. And really, we talk about where are things going. That's another one of the things that you evolve is, okay, well, people want to pop up their phone and watch a tip.
Big time.
Not necessarily open up a magazine and read it, and then go to the range with their tip and read it. They could just pop up things on their phone. That's just the nature of where we're at. It doesn't kill the fact that print is still a popular thing for golf, maybe as a niche market, but it doesn't change the fact that we're going into a different era here. And once again, there's a situation where we've evolved, and we've evolved with you doing this. And I think it's going to be amazing this year, through the season, doing it with the video instead of the audio, or instead of
for a few years now, Jeff, we made the decision. I do these quick tips on Twitter and these Tip Tuesdays, and we send them out to our mailing list and whatnot. They're extremely popular. People like that. And, I keep them very simple and very, like I say, timeless. I don't want to be looking back at a tip and go, oh, that was this phase where I thought this system was better, right? So it's all based on athleticism and balance. And actually that tip, the funny you say that, I'm really looking forward to filming the rest of them with you guys. But that, and I say it in the video, people should watch the video if they haven't seen it yet, but Jake and I are there, and that poster of the grip that I kind of propped up against my golf bag in the tip, that is still in both my studios here at the golf center. And we wrote it, I think, what was that? Was that 99 or 2000? It was
2000,
like 5 years. Anyways, our first tip was the one out of the first 5 years. And I still feel the exact same way about the grip as I did then, and I think that's a good thing. Now, I maybe explain, medial pads and distal pads a little more, with a little bit more thoroughness and knowledge after all these years, but basically that tip has stood the test of time. And I think our next one, you don't even know this yet, but one of my
breaking news, everybody, I'm finding out for the first time too.
No, one of my favorite ones we already did was spring load your backswing.
Yes.
And when people ask me about my teaching philosophy, it's body first. Like, as much as I love all the data out of the launch monitors and TrackMan and everything, if your body moves properly, you got a lot better chance to have the golf club moving properly. So instead of looking at the club face data, let's get the body moving the right way. And I've taught all my young teachers over the years to start at the inside and work out towards the ball. And anyway, spring load is a big part of my teaching philosophy always, which is to kind of wind yourself up in your backswing in balance. And I don't know what year, that might have been 2002 or 3.
Yeah.
I've got that little dry mount. Like, we did a 2-pager.
I do remember it. So it's got the little yellow swoosh on the side.
Yeah, and I think I'm throwing a Frisbee in one of the pictures. So I'll have some fun doing that video this month. That'll be good. That
will be awesome. All right. Well, Kevin, let's end on that. I want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast and doing this with me. And, it's always great to talk to you, but it's a good opportunity for us to share a little bit more about you in the past.
Looking back, a couple old men looking back.
Exactly. Well, thanks very much, Kevin.
Can you believe how old we are?
I'm not even saying how old we are.
I can't believe how old we are. There's something wrong here.
The sad part is we're as old as we are, and we're still doing things the way we, and working as hard as we did, back in, for me in 1996, and for you, it goes back a little bit further than that yet. But we're still doing it.
No regrets, man. No regrets.
None at all. None at all.
It's been awesome. Okay, great partnership, great friendship. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks very much, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it.
All right. Well, that was a great little conversation with Kevin. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to do that. Kevin and I go way, way back, obviously, to the inception of the magazine, and we're good friends. And it's nice to get him onto this show. It's a bit of a turning of the tables, as I alluded to there, that I'm so used to going on Kevin's show and Tee It Up for the last number of years, and getting interviewed by Kevin about things that are going on within the region. It was kind of nice to bring him onto this podcast and talk with all of us, and about his journey, about how he got from where he started to where he is, but not really digging into the history side of it so much as it is the path and the journey that got to where he is now. So thanks very much to Kevin for coming on and doing that. I'm sure obviously Kevin will be a part of future episodes of this show for a while to come. Now, keeping the show moving along here, we have our favorite hole in the 613 contest that we've been running. We've done 2 weeks of it now. We're entering the 3rd week. And this week, Brad Trillis from Ottawa submitted his selection, and we drew it number 4 at Smuggler's Glen. Obviously an awesome hole, as all of the holes that have been submitted to us. We can only pick one every week, obviously, but number 4 at Smuggler's Glen is quite memorable, especially if you're standing up on that tee and looking down at a rock face that you don't think you can get to, but you can, a bunker that you don't think that you can get to, but you can. And then once you get to negotiate that tee shot, then you're left with some very big decisions to make with your second shot on that par 5. So great selection, Brad, and we'll be sending you 2 passes to play Smuggler's Glen this summer. So thanks for that, and thanks to everybody who keeps sending in the submissions. If you want to get a submission in, you want to have a shot at getting your name drawn, for those 2 passes. It's not always going to be at Smuggler's Glen, but that's what we have right now. And you can send those submissions to jbotter@flagstick.com, along with a photo if you have one. In a lot of cases, we have the photos, but if you have one, so jbotter@flagstick.com, send those submissions to us along with your name, the course, and the whole number that you are submitting for. Well, we're going to go back to Kevin now because it's time for another quick tip. We want to head out to the lesson tee and see what our good friend Kevin Haime has to help us with in our golf swing this week.
All right, golfers, I'm out here at the Kevin Haime Golf Center in my short game complex. Time for another chipping quick tip. And we've talked in the past about hitting down through that shot properly, keeping the weight forward. Today we're talking about not letting those hands break down. A lot of times I watch people try to chip and they cup this wrist and they end up hitting skull shots and miss-hitting shots. Very easy little fix. Coffee stir sticks. You can use a pen or a pencil. I just don't want you stabbing yourself though. Put it in your glove like that, just running up your lead wrist. And then when you hit your little chip shot, that'll give you a little reminder not to cup and break down that wrist. It really works. It helps me a lot. I even use it when I'm practicing. Something down your lead hand glove, and then you allow your swinging motion to bump that golf ball onto the green. You don't get any breakdown. Next time you're practicing here at the Kevin Haime Golf Center, give it a try.
Well, there you go. Another great tip from Kevin. All these tips, I'm sure that by the time we actually do get to play golf, we'll all be such great golfers. We'll be ready to go for the season. So maybe some of you can do like I've done and actually get a net to put in the backyard so we can work on our swings while we're not able to play golf. Anyways, that's about it for this week. I want to thank our guest, Kevin Haime, for coming on and being a part of this show. I want to thank our sponsor, Ping Golf Canada, for supporting the show this week and for future weeks as well. I want to thank all you for tuning in and listening and watching on YouTube if that's where you're checking us out. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can go to flagstick.com. You can check out any episode that we have done. And whenever we release a new episode, you can check them out there. Be sure to also check out the spring issue of Flagstick Golf Magazine at flagstick.com as well. You can subscribe to the channel on YouTube. We do encourage that. We're trying to get more subscribers built up on that channel so we can do some other things as well. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the notification bell to make sure that you get notified whenever we drop a new episode. And so I hope that we have some better news come next week when we release the show, and that maybe we're golfing again, but at least we're getting a little closer. So until then, have a great week. This has been Jeff Botter from Flagstick Golf Magazine, the 613 Golfer podcast, and always remember, go for the stick.